Welcome back to the Become a Provider podcast. And my guest today is Peter Greer. Peter is the president and CEO of Hope International, a Christ centered economic development organization serving throughout Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Eastern Europe. Under Peter's leadership, Hope International has expanded to work in over 20 countries and has equipped more than 2.9 million families with financial tools to help them break through the cycle of poverty. Prior to joining Hope, Peter worked in Cambodia, Zimbabwe, Rwanda. He has co authored 15 books, including Mission Drift, Rooting for Rivals, The Gift of Disillusionment, and The Spiritual Danger of Doing Good. In this conversation, though, we focus on his most recent book that he co authored, Lead with Prayer. And here are a couple of my key takeaways to just prime you for this chat. Number one, Peter has such a gracious nature about him from his tone and mindset. This just comes across immediately in the conversation that I think you'll resonate with. Second, there are so many strategies and tools when it comes to prayer that it can actually be something we look forward to as leaders versus just being a duty of faith. And third and last, Peter puts in constraints to ensure he is providing well for himself and his family. So I hope you enjoy this great conversation. It was such a privilege to get to meet Peter and bring to life this book, Lead with Prayer, The Spiritual Habits of World-Changing Leaders. So I hope you enjoy it. All right, we're live. Peter, cheers. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So this is an easy intro because I like to kick things off by how the guest has provided for me. And while this is the first time connecting, you've provided for me through your work, this book, Lead with Prayer. And thank you for co-authoring this. Like, you're a busy guy. You're running Hope International. You've got a family. There's things going on in your life. So thank you for taking time out of your schedule to write this book. And what motivated you to make the time and effort to do this?
I appreciate you saying that, Justin, but I will pass that on to Ryan Skoog, my friend and co-author, who is the originator of the idea. And there are some book projects that I have gone in with great enthusiasm, and there are others that I have gone in being dragged behind. And this is in the dragged behind category. But Ryan came and said, Peter, I'd love to write a book about the prayer lives of world-changing leaders. And he said, I look at my bookshelf and I've got a lot of books about all kinds of things about leaders. I can tell you what they eat. I can tell you their habits. I can tell you all of these things, but I've got nothing that connects the idea of prayer and leadership. And he said, let's write that book. And my initial response was, that's a great book. I would absolutely read it, but I am not going to do that. Ryan, I got so much to learn about my own prayer life. And I love what happened, though, is on the journey together, writing this book with Ryan and Cam and Jill, it has absolutely transformed my personal and our organizational prayer practices. So I appreciate you sharing that, Justin, but Ryan Skoog is the originator of the idea, but it has been an amazing, amazing process to research and write together.
I was looking for a book on prayer. And just to give you a quick backstory, I lead a men's group through this C.L. Thomas Fellowship. And this is a relatively new book. I hadn't read it before, but I had listened to a podcast interview that she gave. And I thought, this is just all the Venn diagrams, business, leadership, prayer life, as you mentioned. And I'm so glad that our group has read this, and we're actually meeting in a couple days to talk about it. And part of the book that stood out to me is that you and your co-authors did some research around what other companies, what other leaders are doing for their prayer life. And a story that stood out to me was you step out of an elevator and it's a quiet office. And what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah. And that actually preceded the writing of the book on that. But you're exactly right. That was what we did with our leadership team here at Hope International. So every once in a while, we bring our leadership team to learn from another organization about what they are doing. And so we were welcomed by the International Justice Mission. Gary Haugen has been so kind, so generous, so open-handed, and invited the leadership team of Hope International to come to Washington, D.C. And again, you have this time, we're all excited, but the elevator door opens and it is eerily quiet. And initially our thought was, did we come to the wrong place on the wrong day on that? Because we were not where we should be on that. But it turns out that they had an organizational practice where they start every day in prayer. And it was not corporate prayer. That actually happened later in the day that we got to participate in, but that started right away, where individuals take moments at the beginning of the day to pause, to reflect, to pray. And that made such an impression on us because my day tends to start with jumping right in. Let's go on that. And I thought it was so interesting. Here's this organization committed to ending human trafficking. And what do they start the day with? A reminder that unless God shows up today, all of their efforts are not going to amount to a whole lot. So that was the visit to the International Justice Mission, and have come to realize they really do take prayer seriously at that organization. And they have shaped the prayer practices at Hope International as well.
Yeah, it's so nice when people doing real meaningful work take time to reflect on, hey, prayer's important for us as well, especially what they're doing. And you mentioned hope, and I believe you share in the book you have designated days of prayer at Hope. What does that look like for your team and company?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So that's a practice that we have where quarterly we take a day to go together to stop the work that we're doing and to do a different type of work, the work of prayer. And it just is this powerful way for us as a team to gather. And as many as are here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is where we're headquartered, join in person. But by no means is it only for people that are here. We have remote team members and colleagues, and they too join in. So we have sections that are remote, and then each one is organized by different members of the team. And it oftentimes has a wide variety of the different prayer practices reflective of who is in that group. And it has been such a gift to have that time together and just be reminded this mission, this work that we're doing, impossible in our own strength. So we come together to pray. And we do that every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But then we also take, it's not a full day, it's about noon until 5 p.m. That we pray together. And it has been very meaningful, very special for us to pray together as a global team.
Well, 9 to 5, that seems like a pretty full day to me. That's a pretty dedicated day to pray. uh, One of the practical things that I took away from your book, and this is going to be embarrassing, is I finally learned the Lord's Prayer. And I've been a Christian a long time, but maybe because I grew up in a non-denominational household, and maybe it was because there's different translations with it, and I'd always get confused. But yeah, so thank you for putting in some of the basics for people like me that just needed to learn Prayer 101.
No, I so appreciate that. But isn't it interesting that the Lord's Prayer was prompted by the same question that we were asking as we approached this book writing project? But the disciples went to Jesus, and and it's so interesting. They didn't say, Lord, teach us how to do miracles like you. Lord, teach us how to do amazing sermons like you. They said, Lord, teach us how to pray. There's something different about your prayer life. Teach us how to pray. And that is the response. The Lord's Prayer was the response. But in a similar way, that was our posture as we started writing this book together. What can we learn about the prayer practices of Jesus? And what can we learn from the prayer practices of leaders throughout history and throughout the world right now today? And yeah, again, it just has radically transformed our prayer lives as we joined in this process together.
Mm. You mentioned interviewing leaders, and one of the leaders I've heard you say really stood out to you was Johnny. Tell us about her story.
Yeah, so Johnny Erickson Tata is someone that had a diving accident when she was a teenager and became a quadriplegic and lives with chronic pain. And in many ways, you can look at her life and say, God has not answered her prayers. She absolutely has prayed for relief. She has prayed for healing, and God has not answered those prayers. And it was so interesting, Justin. Instead of feeling bitter or disappointed, there was a different level of relationship with Jesus that she had from certainly from my own life. I mean, there was a different level of prayer. There was a different level. And she shared this. She said, when I pray, and she said, still, people come to her and say, would you pray for this particular issue? And she says, absolutely. But she says, I don't pray for that issue more than 20% of the time. 20% of the time, I do pray for deliverance. I pray for healing because I know God can and does do that. But you don't have to be a mathematician to say if she's only spending 20% of her time on that particular prayer for the issue, what's the other 80%? And she says, but the other 80%, I'm praying that they would experience the presence of Christ in their pain. I'm praying that God would be at work in the midst of it. And she said, experiencing Christ in your pain, that is ecstasy beyond ecstasy. It is better than the healing. It is better than the answer to that initial prayer. And when she said that, I thought that is so different from the way that I pray. I'm not 80-20, flip the other way. I'm 100-0. God, this is what I'd like you to do. This is the timeline. And it just was a radical reframing of even what is the subject, what is it that we are praying about. So yeah, that stood out. And again, it's hard to describe, Justin, and our conversation here, but the way that she said it, it was so clear that she meant it in the deepest parts of who she was, that she would rather have her pain with Jesus than have a life without Jesus, without that level of pain. And again, she had experienced the nearness of Christ. I have no doubt.
I mean, I think that's a gem that it's I mean, that's it, right? Like that's worth the book, that's worth this conversation. If we can all truly believe that, to say, oh, the gift is knowing God. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And that was the other thing. It wasn't just Johnny, but they used different language. But several of the individuals that we interviewed had a similar statement. And they described it as this is about friendship with Jesus. Or one individual talked about this is about wasting time with Jesus. And this is someone who's a very busy New York leader of an investment fund. He doesn't waste time, but he said, you cannot have friendship without that. If every time someone comes to you, here's what I want, that's not friendship. That's someone coming to you. And so, this idea about wasting time with Jesus or friendship first, that is, again, a very different experience than most of my life and my experience with prayer.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's the first chapter is wasting time with God, and it's a great one because it gets to the heart of the matter right there. You have to spend enough time where you feel like you're wasting some time, and I think that's a great bar that maybe different in everyone's schedule, but I love that. That was something that stood out to me as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and Ryan Skoog, one of his prayer practices, every Sunday, he prays, and that day he does not ask for anything. A whole day of prayer, a whole day communing with God, and it's not about here's what I want. We are to present our request to God with thanksgiving, absolutely invited, but I think prayer is so much more than just that.
Yeah. There was a quote in there that this stood out to me, and just to riff on it with you a little bit, it said something to the effect of, without exception, the praying leaders we interviewed would say that the most productive moments of their life are spent with Jesus. And I thought that was, to this point about wasting time with God, on the one hand, it is wasting time, but on the other hand, it's the most productive time.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's the research is clear too, right? It is the benefits of prayer personally to what it does physically to your body. Like physically, the benefits of prayer are significant. Organizationally, you want to have an environment where there is less stress and more commitment to the mission. Prayer is a part of that. There is definitely a benefit of that. But I think the real difference here is it's not prayer so that we get these things. It's prayer so that we can simply have an experience with Christ. And there's a whole lot of benefits in productivity, in stress, in connection that come from it because it is in alignment with the way that God made us to be in relationship with Him and relationship with others. And so, all kinds of benefits, no doubt, no question. But again, the real prize is this experience of being with Christ. And again, I would say I had very few of those experiences for most of my life. And partially it's because my prayer was not listening. My prayer was essentially, here's what I want. Bless me, Lord. And again, just my mind, my prayer life, it's been radically expanded to realize it is so much more beautiful than that.
Yeah, and you guys knew your audience when at the very end you have this great checklist of becoming a praying leader. And just to share with our audience, if they haven't read the book yet, a couple of them are create space for friendship. We talked about that. Create a plan, a rule of life around prayer. Create prompts to remember Jesus throughout the day. Practice posture, and it goes on. Are there any practices, whether it's from this list or just from talking with one of the leaders that you interviewed, that you've recently adopted?
Oh man, all of the above, Justin. Like seriously, I cannot state this strongly enough. I went in this feeling so unqualified to be involved in this, and I have had a dramatic impact in my prayer life. And so, all of those practical pieces that you just went through, this is not a list that we researched. This is what we've tried. This is the journey that we've been on, and that's really for those that do read it or those that wanna grow in their prayer life. Our invitation is super simple. Like try it. Try using these tools. If you've never done Lectio Divina, try it. If you've never done the Examen, like try it. If you've never experimented with different ways that our physical posture can shape our prayer life, try it and see if it helps, see if it deepens that experience. So all of those are things that we have tried, and just personally, many of them are things that I have adopted. But one of the real simple ones was if there is no plan around prayer, you will not pray. If you're waiting for a moment when you have nothing else to do, you will never engage in prayer. So, do we have time set aside? Do we have a time and a place in that? And again, for me, that's where the rule of life, it's not a new idea. It's been around for 1,500 years. It's an old idea. But what would it look like if we structured our day, not fitting in our prayers, but what if we put that as some of the rocks that we would do different times throughout the day and then built in our experience around that? And again, going back to where you started, Justin, the story with the International Justice Mission, that was absolutely, they said, this matters individually. We're going to start our day corporately. We're going to do that later in the day. And there is a time and there is a place to grow together in prayer. So, yeah, that's maybe a catch-all, but it's much more structure. It's much more creativity. It's much more experimentation to say which of these practices are really going to help have a deeper level of intimacy in prayer.
Mhm. Another concept that stood out to me was creating a prayer team. And I'll be honest, there's several friends or missionary friends of mine, and they'll ask to join the prayer team, and I never really took that seriously. And for some reason, when I read your book, though, it did. Perhaps it's because I come from a more of the business background, and when I heard the story of, I think his name is Peter Kubisak, and he's a business guy. He then went around and asked some other business leaders, "What's your prayer strategy?" And he just got a bunch of blank looks. Like he's asking Christian business leaders. It's not like he's going out to the Chamber of Commerce and expecting an answer from anyone and everyone. And he ended up creating a like a prayer team, and he's not a missionary necessarily. He's working, but he's trying to work unto a purpose. And I love the story. Like he's like got a bunch of 80-year-olds praying for him, and I think that really stood out to me of like creating a personal prayer team. Yeah, do you want to riff on that or any personal
Yeah,
experience with having a prayer team?
no, I think you're so right, Justin. What I find really interesting is show me a business leader that does not have their group of peers, right? That are engaging in some sort of a business or professional board or council of that. What business leader would make a decision without inviting in that council to weigh in on that decision? And I guess what we're saying by our practices is we are valuing that experience more than the prioritization of a group of individuals that are also praying that the God who made the entire universe would guide and direct those decisions, would be present in the midst of this. And I think that perhaps is one more indicator that for most of us, we are doing our work in such a way that we live as functional deists. We do our day to day work as if God is not present in the detail. God is kind of far away, distant, and maybe we can call out if we get in trouble. But I think that was really the difference as we looked at these prayer lives of leaders. They actually believed that God is present in the day to day. They actually believe that God does provide guidance and insight. God does change perspective, um, and and uh, and prayer is a gift in that. I think about Terry Looper as well, another business leader who, before every business decision, goes through a process. And one of them, he talks about getting neutral, where he wants God's will more than his own in that decision. And prayer is baked into every single decision. He makes it, he goes so far to say, I make no decisions until waiting 24 hours. So I've had time to think and pray about these decisions. So again, that gift of prayer. Do we actually value a group of individuals praying with us, praying for us, as we do individuals providing business coaching or insight? And for some of us, we might benefit from a little more time in prayer, even if that means perhaps even a little less time in the stewing of our own minds and our own whiteboarding sessions to try and figure out the solution on our own. And again, as we started having these conversations, so many of them could point to how prayer saved, whether it was their company or a terrible decision. How many decisions would be different if we prayed about it first? How many of the stories that you know that don't end well, how many of those stories would have been different if individuals paused and prayed before making that decision? I can't believe that some significant decisions would have been changed if that was the practice.
Mm. Well, I want to be a prayer led leader, like, a leader that just leads with prayer because I'm not, and there's great opportunity for me to grow in this. And it's been really fun to challenge myself with the Lord's Prayer and also praying our org chart and doing that. Um, so that's been super helpful to challenge myself with that. And another encouraging message in your book is that you can learn to like prayer.
Hmm. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Yeah. I think that was Tim Keller originally that wrote the idea of it's possible to move from duty to delight.
Mm,
Or another person mentioned it's possible in prayer to go from I should to I can't believe we get to on that. And that change, Justin, it is not all the time. It is not every experience. But I think it is absolutely possible to grow in prayer and to move from duty of it to actually, this is incredible. I actually get to experience the presence of Christ right here, right now. That is powerful. So I'm with you. As someone else who's on the journey, who would say, I still feel like I am in the shallow end of the pool. I see some people deep in swimming, and I'm like, that question, I think that's why it resonates so much from the disciples. It's like, Lord, help. Like, I don't know how to pray. Lord, teach me to pray. And I just have to believe, and I do believe that God answers that prayer, and it is possible to learn more about what it looks like. Yeah, to experiment, to grow,
mm.
and to go from a sense of duty or obligation to delight and joy when it comes to prayer.
Yeah, and there's so many like nuances to prayer, isn't there? Where I think you guys mentioned the book Think Fast, Think Slow, and kind of the same concept can be parlayed into prayer life, where we have the fast prayers of I pray, before meals very quickly with my family, and then maybe there's those opportunities like you do at Hope, which is these formal day retreats or designated times of prayer, where it's more that slow prayer, and that's a nice concept to really think about. Is that prayer sometimes is fast and sometimes it's slow.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And I put that in the same category of when it says, pray with all types of prayers on that.
Mm,
And so whatever your background is, whatever your experience, my guess is you're only using a small subset of the tools that are available to you in that. So all types of prayers. And one of the things that we did as part of the book was to create it's a deck of prayer cards. And each one, I found
mm,
it so helpful to have these prompts, to have these ways to be invited into let's experiment, let's explore, let's try different things, and each one with a prayer prompt. So if someone is saying, I don't know where to begin, we made all these things as much as we could available for free on the website, leadwithprayer.com. But you can just download this, or you can print it out yourself and just go through these prompts And again, some of them will resonate, some will be helpful, and some you can try once and then you can put that card away because that was not helpful. So yeah, that's really it. That's our hope. Just a broadening of the tools, a
Hmm.
broadening in a very practical, a very actionable way. The idea about expanding the different ways that we pray.
Yeah, I love that, and thank you for the tools. I haven't checked that out yet. I did download the Echo Prayer app, and I think that's a partnership that you guys have where if people want some technology, maybe like a push notification, or even it seemed like this could be an opportunity to invite a personal prayer group
Mm.
together with that. And so I've downloaded that, and I thought, well, this would be great to actually have create my own personal prayer team. And it challenged me to think to myself, well, am I living a life that is worthy of the enemy coming after me because I'm actually trying to do some good towards the kingdom here, and to have a prayer team with it. So the app is another tool that I'm experimenting with.
I love hearing that. Here it is on my phone right here.
Oh, nice.
That is regular, and for me, Justin, one of the benefits of that is how often in the past have I said, I'll pray for you about that," and I do not. That's not friendship. Like, come on. If I say I will, I really want to. And this has been a tool that's been so helpful in that. And you're exactly right. The ability to invite others in. So I have so much appreciation. That app alone has really taken the intentionality to a next level of saying, no, these things, I do want to be consistent. I do want to be faithful in prayer, and having a way to regularly remind or prompt, super helpful. And in many ways, Justin, this is just using a new tool for an ancient practice. But around Europe, what do they have? Bell towers. What were bell towers originally used for? To signal significant moments, so whether that's a wedding or something else, but also to invite people to pause what you're doing to pray on that. So we've got some tools. I just think we need to use them a little bit more to say, let's use these tools to pause, to remember, to pray. And I think that alone is super helpful in helping us become leaders who pray.
It reminds me a lot of the book Atomic Habits, and in that book he shares the importance of cues, like visual cues of just to remind ourselves. And so whether that's a glass of water at the desk here or my notebook for taking notes or whatever it might be, it's just make it easy and attractive to do the behavior that we want to do. And it sounds like that's what you guys discovered in this journey of becoming a prayer leader.
That's so well said. Yeah, it is. If you want to have the habit of prayer, absolutely. It's those same principles. How can we incorporate that in? What are those prompts? What are those ways to yeah, actually implement it? Yep. So we love that book. Drew heavily on that in the way that we thought about what it looks like to yeah, create those prompts regularly to be people who pray.
Mm. Well, thank you for letting me geek out about your book and the idea of prayer. Uh, and I know this isn't your full time gig, so tell us about Hope International. Like, I think this is a fantastic organization, helping people with micro lending and doing it with a Christ focus. So, for those that don't know about Hope, tell us a little bit about the work you're doing.
No, thanks, Justin. You're totally right. My day job is with Hope International, but I do love the writing process, and it has been a wonderful form of personal growth and development. Always writing with friends, but to go deeper on a topic that really interests me on that. So, thanks for your words about the book. Thanks for reading it, and yeah, so enjoy the conversation on that. But yeah, my day job is with Hope International. And so we're an organization, just as you said, that invests in the dreams of families as we proclaim and live the gospel. We operate in 24 countries, and we provide small loans and savings, places for people to have a safe place to save their money. And we do it in partnership with local churches around the world. And really, it's designed to break the cycle of generational poverty by helping people have jobs, meaningful work, and again, not just the physical impact of breaking physical poverty, but then also growing in their understanding of Christ, understanding of who they are. And so it's this mix about discipleship, about microfinance, and about poverty alleviation. And if anyone wants to learn more, we love telling stories. We love this work that we do. We can go to hopeinternational.org to learn more. Real simple, yeah, kind of video that shows how exactly that works, how we invest in people and places around the world. But yeah, it's just been an incredible joy. Been doing this for 20 years with Hope International. And then before that was doing it in Rwanda and Cambodia and Zimbabwe. So very much this has been my career, figuring out how we bring the hope of the gospel alongside these tools of investing in entrepreneurs to break the cycle of poverty.
How about your own personal story? Like, when was a moment that God has provided for you? A lot of times, I like to ask that in your career because it's a little bit easier to think back of, oh wow, this connection with this mentor opened up this opportunity, whether as at Hope or doing your first mission work there. But as you think about maybe your career in particular, when was a moment that stands out to you about being provided for?
Oh man, as it relates to the conversation that we're having, I've been thinking recently just about, I mean, over the last couple weeks, I have been with some of the families that Hope serves in places of real extreme poverty. Um, and I have been in some rooms with some very influential and generous titans of industry. And I've been thinking about that because my mom prayed a prayer. It's not always that you remember a specific prayer from a long time ago, but this would have been 1999. It was at the airport, moving to Cambodia. Not sure when I was going to come back or what the plan was. And her prayer was essentially that I'd be able to be fully present, love well, whether I am with princes or the very poor. And I think about my career and um, it's unusual, Justin. I truly get to be in two extremes. Um, and I love that I get to be a bridge both ways in that. And I hope the way that I interact with people that are living in material poverty or people that have a whole lot more, I really do appreciate that prayer of my mom. And that is what I guess I do feel. I don't look at people a whole very differently in that. They probably got the same issues. They might look a little bit different, but they're probably are the same dreams, the same concerns. And so I just think about the absolute joy it's been
Mm.
and the provision, I think, of being able to be in these two different rooms and not feeling perhaps comfortable or uncomfortable in either in that, but just being able to be present in those two places. And God has provided so much. I mean, yeah, Hope International, it's been an incredible story of growth. Um, yeah, in my time here, we've gone from 2 to 24 countries. We've been able to grow a budget from essentially 1 million to 50 million. It's been God has provided so much, and we want to be really wise stewards in this. But then I also think about the other provision. I get to work with an amazing group of friends and colleagues that I deeply respect. And several of the stories in the book are actually just the
Mm.
stories of people that I get to work with around the world, whom I, again, so much love, so much respect for the way that they lead on that. So I could go on, but I have been so abundantly, I have been given so much. And I think the question for all of us is, all right, what do we do, Lord? What do we do? How do we have hands and heart open to say everything that we have is a gift? So open hands, not tight fists, in the way that we lead and hopefully serve well.
And you probably have a unique perspective on this parable about the parable of the talents, where you're given some talents, and then the owner goes away and comes back, and some have multiplied that, and some buried it and didn't do anything. And so, in your work, like you said, I mean, you have this opportunity to live out this prophetic prayer that your mom prayed over you to be in front of princes and also those impoverished. And so, how do you think about that parable of the talents, where you essentially get to invest some of these wealthy business leaders, perhaps that want to invest overseas, and you want to steward that money well, and like that parable says, and then have some
Mm.
return on it, but just do it in a loving way. I don't know if that parable resonates with you or not, but do you feel that you're living that parable out in the work you're doing?
Justin, I love that parable. You know, I love that parable in the work that we do, where we are investing and helping individuals have that return, and we would absolutely define that return as more than just financial on that as well. So, looking at it from a holistic perspective, absolutely. So we love that. One of the fun things, Justin, is to hear not just that told from a North American context, but to hear it told from different pastors, different leaders, different individuals around the world, and to hear individuals that you and I would look at and say, well, they're probably in a category not of the five talents. They're probably in the lower, but they look at it and say, no, I've been given so much. I'm the five talent. We are the five talent in that. And in many ways, I think that idea about, yeah, we've been given a lot, all of us who have the hope of Christ, we have been given so much. What do we do with that? How do we invest it? How do we seek a return for the kingdom so that we hear that beautiful line, well done. You've been faithful with this. Let me put you in charge of many things. Like that is a beautiful thing to hear from someone that you are investing on behalf. And I think for all of us to remember, like the talents that we have, uh, are they ours, or have they been given for a purpose? And we would say life looks differently when you realize that everything you have is a gift to be stewarded well for the purpose of Jesus in our world. So that's been that's been a parable that I've loved to hear shared. Love to hear the way that it's shared locally around the world, and I think for all of us to say, "Yep, given a lot. Let's make sure we're not burying it. Let's make sure we're using it for the kingdom."
Mm. Yeah, that is so good. Those words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." I mean, that's really, I mean, that's the goal. And so, thank you for that reminder and that perspective that you're able to bring to me of, wow, these people that I would classify as maybe the two talent people, they're looking at themselves like the five, and who am I to label them as the two talent people?
Yeah, and I think for some of us to be like, well, I'm the two talent person, right? Because we look around and we see all kinds of people that have a lot more, perhaps. But I think again, the return is the same. Both of them doubled on that. And in some ways,
Mm.
if you're focused on am I the two or the five, that's the wrong question. No matter what you have, are you using it to get that return for kingdom purposes? I think
Mm.
that's the area to focus.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that encouragement. That's really good. I needed to hear that as well. Well, Peter, I'm so delighted to have an excuse to reach out to you to say, "Hey, can we chat?" Because of the book, but also your work. It's really inspiring, and what I find so fun about this life, but especially if you're a believer, is to truly believe that there's the Holy Spirit moving even without us knowing. And so, like, how cool is it for you to take on this project? And here I am in Raleigh, Durham, and we have a chance to connect because you said yes to a book project. And I hope this blesses others to be encouraged in their prayer life and encouraged of their talents and to double it, but also to to recognize that it doesn't matter that question that you just posed. It doesn't matter if you're the five or the two. It's like, what are we doing with what we have? So I'm just excited to see what God does with this.
I so appreciate that, Justin. And no, the privilege is mine. I love the doors that it opens up on that. And in many ways, this is the incentive to keep writing, to have
Hmm.
conversations, and hear how God is at work in other people. And so, no, nothing but appreciation, Justin, for the time and the conversation.
Oh, it's been great. One last question for you. It's I usually like to ask this to leaders I interview is how are you providing for yourself in this season? Is there anything that you're being intentional about? And I think that's kind of fun to peer into the life of those we've talked about because obviously your work is dedicated to helping others and growing their faith and growing their careers and their finances. And so, yeah, what are some ways that you're providing for yourself in this
Mm.
season?
Yeah, I wish that if I could have one, this is overstating it, but one of the best policies that we have at Hope International is a travel cap. No one at Hope travels more than, and for us, it's 75 nights a year. And in an international organization, that is crazy. That is crazy to have a cap of travel, but you do international work and think of the opportunities. And that means you're going to have to say no to good things. And I think that is so important to say no to good things so that you can say yes to being connected and present and engaged with those that are closest to you. So I wish that we had that policy early on, but I know that has dramatically allowed a greater care for myself, a greater care for my family, and allowed a greater longevity in this work. So that's one very concrete, practical thing, Justin, that I wish every organization had is like set that cap. Do not allow yourself or others to go above it. And that will, yeah, create a healthier team, healthier organization, more delegation, and a more of a focusing on what is most important, not just what is good, but what is going to be best in this season. So that's one very concrete, practical thing. The other concrete thing is and going for a walk after dinner every day that I'm home with my wife. That is so good for that relationship, for my soul, probably for my health as well. But that to just consistently saying, all right, after dinner, our kids know that's mom and dad time, and we're going to be walking. So I don't know if that's too specific, but those are the two things that came to mind.
Those are great. Thank you. And they both have the theme of discipline equals freedom, of putting some type of constraint on your work travel as well as your constraint on what you do afterwards with the family. So that's super practical. Thank you. Um, well, this has been fantastic. I think that's a great place to end. Unless was there anything else that you wanted to share, Peter, that I didn't give you a chance to, or to direct people to as we close?
No, I mean, the place is truly, if anyone wants to go on the journey with us related to the prayer journey, leadwithprayer.com. And then if anyone wants to learn more about Hope International, we love this work that we do. We get to share about it with others, but hopeinternational.org. And we're having an event in your backyard, Justin. So I'm going to make sure I follow up with you in the Raleigh-Durham area there. And then the third is if I could do anything to help the other books that I've written, and I blog at peterkgreer.com. So yeah, anyway, if we can help in any way, please feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. I'll put those in the show notes. And once again, Peter, thank you for the time and the work that you're doing. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Justin. You too.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and I want to provide you with one more thing before you go, called Always Provide. Would you enjoy getting some encouragement each Wednesday to help you get over hump day? If so, subscribe to our free newsletter at clthomasfellowship.org. It's easy to sign up, and it's sort of a diary of ways that I'm personally learning to provide and serve more like Jesus. I share inspiring books, scripture, stories, and even products that are helping me to always provide. So if you want to try it out, go to clthomasfellowship.org/newsletter and sign up. So until next time, keep serving others like Jesus. Bless and protect. This episode is brought to you by Kingdom Nutrition. Kingdom Nutrition provides premium American supplements, so pursue the best version of you. Check out their products at kingdomnutrition.com. Now, I personally enjoy their cookies and cream protein powder, Zeal, and their founder, Billy Henzo, has been a guest on this show. Check out episode number 84 to hear his story of founding and starting and growing Kingdom Nutrition. And I will say, too, that their lean protein, Zeal, or their weight builder, Build, they're all made using non-GMO whey, as well as many other high-quality ingredients not typically found in protein powder. So this is something that I trust and use, and really appreciate the mission-driven focus that Billy has behind this company. So support a great company and a great founder. Check them out, kingdomnutrition.com.